next speaker for this online track is Leon Tribe, joining us from Sydney, Australia. And Leon will demonstrate a twist with the Power Virtual Agent in his session. Is playing games with the Power Virtual Assistant. So over to you, Leon.
G'day, thanks. Yeah, my name's Leon Tribe. I'm a solution advisor for Datacom. And that means I can say kia ora koutou, which is hello everyone for those that don't speak Maori. But yeah, because I work for Datacom New Zealand company, this is what we learn now is how to greet in Māori. But we're not here for a Maori lesson. We're here to learn about Power Virtual Assistant. So what this will be about is it'll give an overview of the product. And what I've done with it, right, which is to create a game. So if you're curious about PVA, this is a great session for you. It's going to give you a bit of a rundown of some of the strengths and weaknesses, and you'll see how I've sort of adapted it for my own. Should be Power Virtual Agent. I've got Assistant in there. Apologies, but yes, you get the idea. So the inspiration from this came from a class of games which are quite old now, right? Which betray my age certainly, which is the Zork games and they're like. So these are text-based adventures. For those that want to revisit these games of old, then there is a link there for the full Zork game that's online. So you can go and have a play with the Infocom Zork game if you so choose. But basically, for those that are too young to remember the 80s. Then it was effectively a time when graphics weren't a big thing. So you'd have text on the screen, it would describe where you are, and then you could do actions. So you'd go north, pick up object, open mailbox, that kind of thing. And so originally, I wanted to know if I could do this in dialogues back in the day, and I did. So back in 2011, I created my own version of a text-based adventure using the dialogues of Dynamics. From that time, and it worked pretty well. So the idea was you were lost on the Redmond campus of Microsoft, and you had to try and escape. And so you had to run around the campus, you had to pick up objects, get in the green and white cars, and move to various buildings, and try and move around. And it worked pretty well. I couldn't package it as a solution because of the text. Basically, it was very hard to package records at that point. So I never packaged this as a solution to distribute, but I thought, I wonder, so I've been waiting a while. I thought, I wonder if I can do something like this with Power Platform, and then PVA came along, and I've got pretty close. And so this is what it looks like. So the same text, the same game as it was for the dialogues, but now dialogues are being deprecated. This is sort of the next best thing. And so you go around and it gives you rooms, in this case buildings, and then you can do objects. And you'll also notice that it's in teams, right? So the other thing I'll be showing today is PVA in teams. So you'll see that as well. So if I do the demo, now I'll just see if I can get to lots of things open, see if I can get to, there it is. Right, so I'll bring the screen down. I'll give you the demo and then I'll sort of talk about how to put it together. And so here we are in Teams. This is our corporate Teams, and I can put in Lost in Redmond, and that's going to start the game. You can already see that I've already started a few times just testing this morning, make sure it was okay. And so I go Lost in Redmond, and then that's going to chat to the bot, and then the bot's going to respond because it knows that this is something to talk to. So it gives us a welcome screen, and it talks about the building that we start at, which is the company store. What do you want to do? And then we have a number of actions. And so I can, for example, I can check my inventory. So there's not going to be too much in my inventory at the moment. But if I hit the inventory button, and it'll go off, have a think about it. And it'll show my inventory. There you go. In your inventory, you have nothing. What do you want to do? And so it gives us another option. I can now get an object. So because we're standing outside, there's some empty coat hangers. So if I get an object, what would you like to get? And it's going to give me an option of the things I'd like to get. In this case, it's the coat hanger. There it is. So let's get the coat hanger. then that'll get added to my inventory. Similarly, as well as getting objects, I can move around. So let's say I want to go to another building. I could go to, say, building 87. I'll just wait for it to catch up. There we go. And I can go to building 87. So then I'll get in one of the green and white cars. That'll take me over to building 87. And so this is the game, right? You sort of move around, you collect objects, you use objects in various places. So in this case, I'm now at the Microsoft library. What do you want to do? And one of the things I can do is, of course, is get objects, etc. Or in some places I can use objects. So there it is, use object. So I could use an object. And that'll get me inside. If I had a library card, I could use it. I don't have the library card, so even if I click on this, it's going to check. It'll say, you don't have it. But this is a game, right? So that's a quick demo of the game. So then the question is, how did we get there? Yeah, so it's a fun little game. Yeah. So we want to take out a book. We don't have the card, so we can't do anything. All right. So that's this is what I've created. So in terms of environments for PVA, so I'll talk about the environments and I'll talk about how I've set it up. There's effectively 3 options for setting up Power Virtual Agents. One is what I did, which is within Teams. This was the easiest for me to set up because it required no trial. So if you are Power Virtual Agent curious, then you can set up a trial very easily. And what's good about the trial is you can just keep extending it. I don't know if Microsoft intended it that way, but you can just keep extending and extending and extending. I've extended this one a dozen times now. I created this little bot quite a while ago, and it just keeps extending. It's a gift that keeps on giving. So yeah, so certainly the Teams environment is nice and easy. When I came in this time to do this presentation, I did have to extend the trial. So even though when I set it up, I didn't need one, I did to rehydrate the bot, if you like. Option 2 is the Power BI development environment. So you can go there, and when I went there, then Lost in Redmond was there as well. So I can test the bot, publish bot, do all the things that I could in here. The third option is in the Make Power Apps. But when I went here, even though I was authenticated to my Datacom user account, the bot didn't appear. So I'm not entirely sure why that's the case. There was another bot that I'd been playing with, which appeared here, but not in the other one. So there seems to be some weirdness with the communication between the environments, or there's some kind of restriction in place. I wasn't entirely sure there. But for me, certainly the one which works the easiest is that Teams environment. So in terms of the anatomy of how Power Virtual Agents works, then you've got topics. And these are the things, so normally, right, so obviously I'm using them in a bit of a strange way, but normally topics are the things you talk about. So it's the issues that you want to raise with the bot. So when I said Lost in Redmond, you might say, how much leave do I have? Or, it's topics which it wants to get towards. Entities are not, for those of you that come from the business applications world like myself, we know what an entity is. It's what's now called a table. This is not them. This is a completely new use of the word entity, separate from dynamics entirely. So these are basically linguistic guides for the AI. So when you type stuff in, the entities allow you to sort of provide guides, if you like, to the AI, so it knows what you're referring to. Lisa Crosby gave a good example in one of her podcasts where she was talking about how she used to play these text-based adventures, and she'd type in "drop dead," and the text-based adventure thought it was something in her inventory that she wanted to drop, and so it got confused, right? So it's that kind of linguistic stuff that the entities can help with. Analytics reports on bot activity, and then the publish and manage. I'll show you later what kind of options we have in there, but it's basically where it gets exposed, where you can show the bot. And so obviously because this is what I do, I didn't quite use it in the way Satya intended, and so I created my own little version topics. And so for me, topics were either rooms. So in the case of, we've got research building 99, library 87, and some of these do actually correspond to the real rooms. Obviously, there is no secret bunker of Bill Gates. That is, there is actually no building 7 on campus at Redmond. So this is it's something of an in-joke. But yeah, these others do roughly correspond to buildings that you see on campus. The other one is we got topics which are default actions. So we've got things like there's the default ones which come out of the box every time you create a virtual agent. So things like start over, goodbye, etc. Which you can modify. You can't easily get rid of them, but you can certainly modify them. And then there's other topics which were basically commands that I wanted to issue to the system. So there's ones which are not obviously published, so things like reset inventory. So when I was testing, that was very useful just to reset the inventory. We've got the Lost in Redmond, of course, which is the it's the start one, so the starting one, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so you get there. So for me, topics were either commands that you could issue, there were rooms, or you had the defaults. And so we should probably get into one of these. So let's again do the live demo. And so for this one, we'll go to the welcome. So I'll just get back to here. And so now I'll go to my Teams development environment, which is this one. And so this is, hopefully the screen's not too small. Hopefully you can see that okay. But the one we're going to go to is welcome. So if I look for Lost in Redmond welcome, there it is. And just to prove it is my current corporate datacom, someone's trying to chat to me. I'll just ignore that. I have turned notifications off, so hopefully we won't see any pop-ups and lolcat images or anything. And so you can go to topics and you can try them out and edit them. Because it's a live demo, of course, it's doing the Wheel of Death. If I get a lot of this, then I'll just go to the screenshots, but we'll see how we travel. Okay. So while we're waiting, I'm going to go to the screenshot. And so what you get is you get trigger phrases in these topics. And so these are phrases which you can put into the chat, which can trigger this particular topic. So in this case, I've got Lost in Redmond. You can have multiple commands. So I might have LIR in there, or Lost in Redmond, or start game, whichever I wanted to. Similarly, you could have, leave request, leave balance, what's my leave? You put whatever trigger phrases you like. And then there's a number of options which can be presented. So you've got a message. So in this case, I've got the message, welcome. And then after the message, you can do other actions. So those actions can be branching. So it can be a branching action. So you can have a conditional, you can have a question, and then based on the response to the question, you can do branching. In this case, I've got just a straight redirect. So after it goes welcome, then it redirects to another topic, which is the company store location. And so this is exactly what we saw, right? So if I go back to the first screen and just scroll up in chat, you'll see where that's happened, right? So here we go. So it's done the welcome, and then it's redirected to building 92, and then it's asked a question, and then it's provided a bunch of options. And then based on those options, it then allows us to go through. Now that is still going. Try one more time, and then we'll move on. No, we'll move on. This is why we always have screenshots. Okay. So in terms of building 87 here, so this is a demo of an anatomy of a room, if you like. then there's no trigger phrases. So we had that redirection. So all the rooms redirect to other rooms. So based on the question that gets asked, then we can redirect to other rooms. And to redirect, you just drag these little circles onto the topic of choice. It's very friendly in terms of the dragging, and you can even have it so that basically it drags back. I would show you, but obviously the demo is doing the Wheel of Death, but something like help, right? So the help could be a standalone topic, and then you redirect it back to the one you came from. And so you do this plumbing of different ones, and this is how you can link the rooms together. And similarly, and so with the inventory, one of the actions you can take is to call a flow, basically. So when we say check, check inventory, for example, then that's calling a flow. Now, unfortunately, the variables in Power Virtual Agents are awful. They're really quite, for someone coming from Power Automate, the variables are just not great. You can't declare variables directly. You can't manipulate the variables. All the stuff you'd expect. So if you come from a coding background, all the stuff you can do with variables, you can't do barely any of that in Power Virtual Agents. Basically, when you ask a question, it auto-generates a variable, which it then stores the value in, and you can't manipulate it. You can pass that value, say, to a flow, and then the flow does stuff with that value and then passes it back. But what I really wanted to do was to have the inventory wholly kept within the Power Virtual Agent, right? So I wanted to declare a variable, and then when people say grab an item, it would concatenate those items to that variable. So then I just have one variable, which would be my inventory list, and then I could refer to that. I could say, show me what's in the inventory, etc. What I had to do in the end was to call out the flow and then keep that inventory in a spreadsheet. So I've got a spreadsheet in OneDrive, and then as items get added, basically I make a flow call to add items to the inventory, and then I can check for items. So I can go to the spreadsheet and check for. I can basically do an iterative search through the spreadsheet, see if that item is in the list. Which is, so when I went to the library and I didn't have the card, that's why I got rejected, because I hadn't got that card in that Excel inventory. Even though I had the coat hanger, that couldn't get me in. And so that's what I've had to do. The downside of that is I can't package this game this time either. So I couldn't do it before when I had the dialogues because of the text, basically, because of the records that I was using. Here, because I'm now using a spreadsheet, and spreadsheet's in a specific location. Actually, it's in Teams. Sorry, not in OneDrive. It's in Teams. I can't package that either without sort of having to instruct people how to create the spreadsheet and sort of point the flows to it. So sadly, I still can't package it. So I'm hoping that variables get fixed in the future so I can contain it wholly within the Power Virtual Agent definition, rather than having to go out and sort of use an Excel spreadsheet as a proxy variable. It's very annoying. But yeah, so we've got check inventory, we've got use object, get object, all sorts of commands which are basically going to the spreadsheet and doing various manipulations or reads of the spreadsheet. That's how the inventory worked. I'm going to tempt fate again and see if we can. Oh, I went too far. Let's go around the horn. Wow, there's a lot of things open. There we go. Let's go around the horn again. Yeah, no, it's still misbehaving. So I'll give that away. So you'll have to take my word for it. No live demos after all. Okay. In terms of publishing, the publishing of the bot works just like Solution Publish. So you publish it and then it's available. You can add them to a team, and so I've added this to one of our channels effectively in our corporate environment. So people that have access to that channel can invoke the bot. And yeah, when it's in Teams, the easiest way to share it around is the copy link. So you can make a bot available to others, and you click through, and you can copy a link, and then if you provide that link to people that have got access to that channel, then they can access the bot. They can, in this case, play the game, or they can do inquiries if it's something real. In the manage details area, you can download the manifest, and my understanding is you can then use that to link it to things like Alexa, and so you can have Alexa call the functions of a Power Virtual Agent, which is pretty cool. You can also manage the channels. So under Manage, there's a channels area where you can have the different channels. So you can have it go out to Facebook and these kinds of things. Basically, you've got to set up the authentication. So you got to enable alternative security to do that. But by default, you can always add it to a team. So if you're curious and you want to play around with this, you can always add the Power Virtual Agent to a team without any problems at all, and it'll just work. There's also the ability to manage skills, where you can have skills call other skills. And where that could work for in this case is if we created multiple games like this, we could have a games hub, right? So I can imagine you'd have a sort of a skill which you then have a games hub, and then you could call other games from within it. But yeah, at the moment we've just got the one, so I haven't set that up. But you can have skills in Power Virtual Agents call other skills if you so choose. So how easy was it? It was actually pretty easy. This was my first Power Virtual Agent, and I didn't really have an idea of what Power Virtual Agents, how they worked. I hadn't really played with them before, so I was just sort of tinkering around. But yeah, well, it wasn't too hard at all. It's got a nice graphical interface. You could drag I can't show you unfortunately because it's bone grinding, but we could grab link the rooms together. I could call flows, and the linking to flows is great, right? Because I'm already quite familiar with Power Automate. Linking to flows gave me a lot of confidence. I could do a lot of things with Power Virtual Agents that otherwise I might not be able to do. So I was very happy about that. The thing which is the big downside, of course, is the variables. The fact that variables are this sort of fixed, only get generated with questions, and I tried all sorts of ways to get around it, but you just can't manipulate them. And that's the big flaw. You just can't. You can pass them up to Flow, and then Flow will spit back an answer, which will go into a new variable. So you can't even like spit it up to Flow, manipulate it in Flow, and then spit it back into the same variable. It just doesn't work that way. They've I don't know if they've purposely nerfed it or whether it's just sort of they just haven't thought about it too hard. But for me, it was really frustrating that we couldn't manipulate the variables. And I see a lot of potential for that in the business context. No, obviously not in the context of silly games, but you might want to manipulate inputs from users and convert it into a format which can then be used elsewhere within the Power Virtual Agent, or you want to recast it before passing it somewhere else. So I see value in doing that, or at the very least being able to pass back into the same variable from a Flow. So you can do the manipulation in Flow and then bring it back. But yeah, none of this is possible. It was that part was frustrating. But in terms of playing and creating a simple bot which could take some input, take plain English input, and then go off to Flow and go do stuff with it, really easy. It's really easy to set this stuff up, and yeah, as I say, you can even put in sort of guides to make the language work well. That's a pretty quick presentation. That is because the demo was going to take up a bit more time. I've finished a little bit early. I'm certainly happy to answer questions. We can go back and see if the whirring spinning. Let's see if I'll try it. I'll try it again. So I'll go to chat box. Try it one more time. I'm on the corporate network here. I thought I'll stay in the office because it'll work, but it's clearly the fates are against us on this one. So yeah, I don't think the demo is going to quite pan out for us. But hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview. I'm certainly happy to answer questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Leon. Thank you so much for the insightful session. And yes, hi everyone. If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute and ask any questions. Leon is the man you don't want to lose.
But don't ask me for an internet connection. It seems that's not my forte. But so certainly happy to answer questions.
Well,
Leon, would you be keen to chat about some use cases that you see, going forward for the future in business?
Yeah, so certainly in terms of being able to sort of pull data. So you've got to, within the context of Teams, certainly you can put in inquiries and go and pull up. One thing I want to create, so there was almost a sentence in there. One of the things I want to create, internally we've got a product called Loopio, which kind of does this already. But my role currently is effectively a pre-sales role, so I do a lot of tender responses, and funnily enough, a lot of tenders ask the same questions. So what I was keen to try and develop was where I'd input into the bot the question from the tender, and it would go off and search all the current documents we have in Teams. Then it will come back with some candidate replies. And because you got access to the flow, I think that's very possible to do some kind of query and matching. May involve AI, I'm not sure, but that's certainly something I could see develop. There's the obvious ones as well. So things like querying the one I mentioned before, the querying the leave, seeing how much leave there is. But really, sky's the limit. You could ask it for weather in other offices, or I'm not sure. But yeah, basically you've got a plain English input, and then you've got access to flows, which means there's an awful lot of power here to query systems which otherwise might be difficult to get to, or you might not have access to full stop, but which certain nuggets of information are useful to come back. So I see a lot of power here.
Awesome.
If only they fix variables.
Yeah, I see the same with the sort of document management, being able to tag documents and find them easily. But I was also wondering about business processes. Do you think that's a step too far?
Yeah, in what sense?
You can pop up a card and that can pull up a virtual agent, and that can sort of walk you through a wizard of filling in a form or an application.
You could. Yeah, it would depend on the context. I can see where a web form would be a preferred format. But no, I can see for if you're asking sort of 5 questions of someone. So something like, I keep coming back to it. So something like the leave request, right? Yeah, that's exactly right. Right. So I keep coming back to the same one, right? So I would like leave. What day would you like leave? This day. How many days would you like leave? This many days. It's been put through to your manager, right? That's an experience we all have in the office. And it's like 3-4 questions there. So I think that would suit really well for a Power Virtual Assistant, rather than going to a form, filling it in, and trying to work the calendar object and all the rest of it. I could see that working really well. And similarly, it could go off. It could check if you've got the the right amount of leave. If you're really clever with Flow, you could make it do working days only. So I could see for a simple request like that, I could see it being very beneficial. So certainly in that case. For more complex forms, I'm not sure getting it to us 20 questions. I think that people get annoyed by that. But yeah, for quick, simple stuff that we do lots of, I could see some value in it, definitely.
Thanks.
Yeah, if there are no more questions, probably then thank you so much, Leon. Again, appreciate it. Thanks for your time, and can't wait to see you in the next WSAP Summit.
No worries. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.